Hey, hello there, welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to discuss about frequently asked questions on scoping and lifespan models. Now, these questions are basically faced by the students whenever they learn about scoping and lifespan of a variable. Okay, so let's quickly see these frequently asked questions. Now, to explain these questions and to explain their answers, what I have done is I have created a simple program. So let's first see this program and then we'll jump onto the questions. Okay, frequently asked questions. So program is very simple. What I've done is I've created a global variable with name var1. Okay, and its type is integer. It is initialized with value 10. Then I have a function called as foo, and in this foo function what I'm just doing is I'm printing value of var1 on the screen. Then I have another function which is main function, which is compulsory function that needs to be written in all the programming files, right? So the main function again has its own var1. Okay, there's this var1 which is a global variable. So let me write comment over here. See, this is a global variable, and then inside the main function also we have another var1. So this is a local variable of main. All right, and then what I'm doing is I'm printing value of var1 over here. Then what I've done is I have created one block inside the main function. This is a block, right? And in this block I'm declaring var1 once again. Okay, there is one more var1 inside the block, and this time var1 is initialized with value 30. And then after this var1 I have again written a cout statement, and I'm again printing the value of var1. Okay, so this is a block scope variable. This variable, this time var1 will have a block scope. Okay, so basically we have a variable with global scope, we have a variable with local scope, and we also have a variable with block scope. All right, and then after each and every variable we have written one cout statement to check its value. All right, now what we'll do is, just to understand how this program is running, let's quickly see the output of this program and then we'll discuss on this. So let me compile this code. So I'll write g++04faq.cpp. So the code has got compiled. Now let's quickly execute this code and let's see what we get as the output. So you can see for the first var1, okay, see over here I have added a numbering, okay, just to understand which output is coming from which line. So this output is for this line. So over here the value of var1 is 20. Okay, then to var1, so over here value of var1 is 30, and then from here what I'm doing is I'm calling this foo function. So inside the foo function also I'm printing var1. So 3 var1, that means this line is basically printing value of var1 as 10. Okay, now let's understand why these outputs are coming in this way. See, let's start from main. In main I have a local variable with name var1 with value 20. Okay, so in main whenever I'll try to access var1, it will basically access the local variable. Okay, always remember, in one of the previous video also we have had discussion on this. Always remember, compiler always accesses the variable which is closest to the scope, okay, or which is present in the nearest scope. So in this case, whenever I'm writing cout statement over here in the function itself, so what compiler will do is compiler will check whether there is any variable present inside the same function or in the same scope with name var1. If the variable is present, then the value of that variable will be taken. Now in this case, if you observe, we have a var1 variable present inside the main function, and that's why whenever I'll write cout over here, this value will be taken, which is 20, and that's why we are getting output as 20. Now coming to this block, in this block also we are printing value of var1. Now this time whenever we are trying to access var1, again apply the same rule. It will check the var1 in the closest scope. Okay, now in this case the closest scope is this block. So compiler will check whether there is var1 in this block. So yes, we have var1, so this value will be taken. So that's why the output will be 30. It's not 20, it's 30. Okay, you can see for second it is 30. All right, so in this way we are getting 30 as the output. Now then we are calling this foo function. So in foo function we are again accessing var1. Now in foo function or in local scope of foo, we don't have var1. Okay, var1 is not present inside foo, but var1 is present in the global scope. So what compiler will do now in this case, compiler will take the value from this global var1. All right, so basically if the variable is present in the same scope, that variable is taken. If the variable is not present in the same scope, then the next scope is checked. Okay, so I'll explain this how it works. See, for example, let's assume that this line is not present. I mean, I'll just comment this line for now. Okay, so now what will happen? Let's see, let's compile this code and let's see what happens now, and let's execute it. You can see for 2var1 we are getting output as 20. Okay, so here instead of 30 now we are getting 20. Now why this is happening? Because in this block, when we are trying to access var1, we don't have var1 in the same scope. In this block we don't have any variable with name var1. So now what compiler will do? Compiler will check whether there is var1 in local scope. Okay, so in local scope var1 will be checked, and you can see in local scope we have var1 and its value is 20. That's why it is printing 20. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll also remove var1 from local scope. Okay, so let's see what happens. Now you can see for all var1s we are getting output as 10. Now why this is happening? See, because over here in main function, whenever I'm trying to access var1, we don't have var1 in local scope, but we have it in global scope. So that's why what compiler is going to do, it is going to take value of var1 from global scope. Or whenever we are trying to access var1 over here, var1 is basically this var1, because we don't have any var1 in local scope. So always remember, if variable is present in the same scope, that variable is taken. If it is not, then it is taken from the next scope. So basically in case of block scope, if it is not present in the block scope, first compiler will check whether it is present in local scope. If it is not present in local scope as well, then it will take it from global scope. Okay, and if it is not present in global scope as well, then there is going to be an error saying that the variable doesn't exist. So I hope you are clear with this concept. Okay, so basically we have just discussed an answer to a question that many students ask me. What happens if we have a variable with same name in different scopes? Okay, so if you have variable in with same name in different scopes, then that's not a problem. You can have a variable with same name in different scopes, and this is how compiler is going to decide which variable it needs to access. Okay, depending on the scope. All right, so I hope you are clear with this question. Now let's move to the next question. So next question is very interesting. So for example, for now let's forget about this block. Let's also forget about this foo function. Okay, let's keep the code very simple. See, for example, we have var1 in global scope, var1 in local scope, and over here whenever I'll try to print value of var1, it will obviously print value of var1 from the local scope. This is what we have discussed so far. Okay, now let's say you have to get value of var1 from global scope. See, you are in main function and you want to access the value of var1 which is present in global scope. So how can you do it? Because if you just write var1, then it will take value of this var1. Okay, but let's say you want to somehow get value of this var1 in the main function. Maybe you want to do some arithmetic operations on it. So for example, you want to calculate the result by adding 30 to the global var1 variable. So how can you do it? Okay, so it's very simple in C++. In order to access the global variable inside the local scope, or I'll say in order to access a variable which is present in a global scope inside a local scope, what you just need to do is you need to write this operator called as scope resolution operator. You need to write 2 colons, okay, one after another without any space. This is called a scope resolution operator, and after this scope resolution operator you need to write name of the variable which is present in a global scope. So over here I'll write var1. So in this case, now what will happen is this var1 will basically refer to the var1 which is present in a global scope. So I hope you are very clear. This is very simple syntax. You need to write this scope resolution operator followed by name of the global variable, and in this way you will be able to get access. So let's print the value of result. Let's see what we get. So result is basically, let's see what we have in the result. So ideally we should have 40 in the result, because in this var1 we have 10 and then we are adding 30 to it, so we should get 40 as the answer. Let's see whether we are getting 40 or as the answer or not. So you can see we are getting 40 as the answer. So that means we are able to access var1 from global scope. So I hope you are clear with the second question. All right, now the third question is also very interesting. We have discussed one concept which is static variables. So we know that in local scope or inside a function we can declare a variable as a static variable by adding static keyword in front of it. Okay, and we have also discussed that if you add static keyword in front of a variable which is present inside a function or which is present inside a block, then that variable will have lifespan for the entire program. Okay, so till the time your program is executing, your variable is going to stay in the memory. And we have discussed that it will have advantages of both local and global variable. This is what we have discussed, right? The next question, the next important question, which is about the static variable, is what will happen if we declare a global variable as static variable? Okay, or is it even allowed to declare a global variable as static variable? So the answer of this question is yes. You can declare a global variable as static variable, and if you declare a global variable as static variable, it is going to have a small impact on the way variable works. Okay, the way global variable works. So this is very interesting. Listen it very carefully. See, in C++, you can distribute your program in multiple files. So far, we haven't done that because our programs are very small. Okay, so we don't have any need of distributing our program in multiple files. Okay, but if you are writing some real world application, then obviously you will need to write your program in multiple files. You cannot write the entire code in one single file. Okay, now if you declare your global variable as static variable, then what will happen? Only the file in which the variable is declared, only that file's functions will be able to access that variable. So for example, if you are declaring var1 in 04faq.cpp as static, then only this file's function will be able to access var1. If you have multiple files, if you have 3 more files, then those 3 files won't be able to access this var1. Okay, so this is what happens when you declare your global variable as static. But if you don't declare your global variable as static, then what happens? If you don't declare your global variable as static, then all the files will be able to access your global variable. Okay, or I'll say all the functions in all the files can access your global variable and they can change your global variable. So whenever you want to keep your global variable limited to your file or limited to this file in which it is declared, then in that case you can make it as static global variable. Okay, so in that case the variable will be accessed only in that file. It will not be accessed in other files. So I hope you are clear with this concept as well. I hope you got all the things that we covered in this video. This was a very short video but very informative. Thank you so much for watching this video, and this basically ends our module called as scoping and lifespan of a variable.